A very good morning and many thanks for joining us on yet another edition of Political Spectrum. We're coming to you live on Spectrum Television. Hello from me, I am Raymond Ita. A lot's been happening, of course, around the political space, especially since the aftermath of the recently conducted general elections in the country. With a face-off currently brewing between the federal government and one of the leading candidates of the just concluded polls in the person of the candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, who has had a face-off that has been trending on social media spaces when he made a tweet to respond to claims made by the federal government through the Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed yesterday about pushing around negative rhetoric that could incite people to violence or possible chaos or rebellion in the country. Well, these are issues we'd focus on, but let's begin properly with the news that the federal government has admonished Mr. Peter Obi against inciting people to violence over the outcome of the presidential election. The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, actually gave the admonition in Washington, D.C. during his official engagements with some international media organizations on the just concluded 2023 polls. Now, during the interactions with the media organizations, Mohammed said it was wrong for Peter Obi to, on one breath, seek redress in court over the outcome of the elections as was advised by the government, and on another breath allegedly incites people to violence because according to him, a Democrat should not believe in democracy only when he wins an election. Meanwhile, Peter Obi has responded in similar manner by criticizing the Minister of Information and Culture over allegations of inciting a post-election insurrection. At a press conference yesterday, Mohammed reportedly warned Obi to desist from stoking violence following the February 25 election, which saw the emergence of Bola Tinubu of the APC as winner. Obi, however, took to his Twitter account yesterday to denounce the allegations amid tensions of a purported plot to install an interim government. Now, he insisted that he has never rallied anyone to protest, let alone stir up a polity, with unguarded statements has been alleged. All of this coming, of course, on the back of the recent audio that was leaked, which was said to be a purported conversation between Mr. Peter Obi and the founder of the Living Faith Church Worldwide, Bishop David Oyedepo, which some say constitute or amount to religious bigotry. We'll talk on that later. But elsewhere, Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka has criticized the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, Godwin Emefiele, for the controversial Naira swap policy that resulted in nationwide scarcity of banknotes. In a televised interview, Soyinka condemned the CBN governor over the policy, which was introduced just months to the polls held on February 25 and on March 18. Well, he further alleged that Emefiele had committed a crime against humanity. While speaking on the need for people-focused leadership, the Nobel Peace Prize winner said his agitations have always been born out of a desire to interact with Nigerians in a state he referred to as civic dignity. The revered playwright also flayed President Muhammadu Buhari for allowing Emefiele to let Nigerians suffer over what he termed a needless and poorly implemented policy. Moving on, the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, says it does not track nor leak mobile phone conversations of Nigerians. Well, the NCC stated this in a statement released by its Director of Public Affairs, Ruben Muka, responding to allegations that it monitors phone calls of Nigerians. This is all coming on the back of the recently leaked audio clips alleged to be a conversation between Mr. Peter Obi and Bishop David Oyedepo, the founder of Winners Chapel, which had gone viral on the internet. Well, in the audio, Obi allegedly asked Oyedepo to secure him votes from Christians in the southwest part of the country, as well as Kwara State, during the presidential polls, describing the election as a religious war. Now, while the presidential candidate has been criticized for allegedly promoting religious bigotry. And most Nigerians are now rather worried about the safety of their phone calls. Speaking on the matter, Moka said the NCC has been inundated with several inquiries by the media on the allegations of telephone tracking and leakage made against the Commission by some individuals and groups in the social and alternative media. Well, the agency therefore refuted the allegations and urged Nigerians to disregard them. Let's go to Enugu State, where the House of Assembly has asked President Muhammadu Buhari and the National Assembly to launch an investigation into what it described as the ignoble role of the military in the just concluded governorship and State House of Assembly elections in the state. The resolution was sequel to a motion on a matter of urgent public importance moved by the chairman, House Committee on Public Accounts and Anti-Corruption, Dr. Chinedu Nwamba, yesterday. Moving the motion, Honorable Nwamba raised concerns that whereas the 1999 Constitution was quite clear on what the role of the military was, which is to defend Nigeria against external aggression and also maintain her territorial integrity, it was alleged that some members of the armed forces were actually used to intimidate, arrest, and also suppress voters, most of them believed to be members of the People's Democratic Party during the March 18 governorship and House of Assembly elections in parts of Enugu State. While quoting some extant cases restraining the military from meddling in elections, Nwamba said that people of Enugu State woke up on the eve of the polls to see fierce-looking and arm-wielding soldiers prowl parts of the state. Now, he decried the abduction of some electoral officers, allegedly, of course, as well as manipulation of results and apparent denial of PDP agents some access to collation centers across several local government areas, whereas agents of other parties, he alleged, had unfettered entrance into the centers on election day. Well, he urged the House to also condemn the military usurpation of the duties of the police, as well as the brutalization and intimidation of voters, thereby paving way for the massive rigging of elections, especially at the local government. Well, the claims coming in from the State House here will be viewed maybe with a pinch of salt by certain quarters, especially the alleged comments that the army were used to intimidate mostly supporters of the PDP in Enugu State. But as it turns out, Mr. David Ba, the PDP flag bearer in the election, is president-elect, or rather governor-elect today of Enugu State, because the PDP still came out victorious at the end of the governorship polls in Enugu State, in spite of the allegations on ground leveled against the Nigerian army. It's left to be seen how the presidency, of course, would respond to the claims that have been made. But those are the day's biggest roundup. Stay with us when we come back from this break. The bickering between the federal government and the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, continues about possible inciting comments made to stir up the polity, and also allegations of post-election insurrection being stirred by the Labour Party. Claims that have been denied by Mr. Peter Obi himself. Or are there truths to those rumours? We'll find out when we come back. Stay with us. Political Spectrum will return.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but
There's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Every day, we bring you up-to-date information on topical issues affecting the common Nigerian.
From issues on politics,
hello Nigeria, I remain committed.
Security,
education, health,
lifestyle, and so much more. Join Janice Kobum and Uyai Anyeken
every weekday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Rise and Shine Daily, exclusive on Spectrum Television.
The Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria Police Force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my
this
lord.
an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. You're watching Political Spectrum live on Spectrum Television. As always, you can connect with us on Star Times DTH Channel 421 and feel free to head to all of our socials where you can connect with us and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website. Just search spectrumtv.ng. Well, let's start off with arguably the day's biggest story, a face-off between the federal government and the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, over claims made by the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, who accused Mr. Peter Obi and warned him against making inciting comments, which have been termed post-election insurrection, that they say could stir up the polity negatively and bring about possible chaos, violence, or a rebellion in the country. Well, Mr. Lai Mohammed was speaking yesterday during an interface with the media on the state of the just concluded elections in the country, which most of the electoral observers, especially those from the international front, said were marred with certain irregularities. Well, while of course having that interface with the media, Mr. Lai Mohammed sent a warning to Mr. Peter Obi by saying he should desist from making such remarks, of course noting that it would pitch the people against the administration of President Buhari or the incoming one of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Well, there's been a response from Mr. Peter Obi himself to most of these claims. He has reacted to the treason allegation leveled against him by the federal government in a tweet, of course, that went viral yesterday. We're going to put that up on the screen for you in a bit. But just going through the content of the tweet made by Mr. Peter Obi yesterday. Well, he said, in the past few days, I have observed various campaigns of calumny directed at my person, with the latest being the allegations attributed to the Information Minister, Lai Mohammed, from Washington, D.C. It is most unfortunate that these consistent efforts to portray me quite contrary to what I am and my core values are coming from such high quarters. Minister Lai accusing me of stoking insurrection is totally malicious and fictitious. And has also said, I have never discussed or encouraged anyone to undermine the Nigerian state. I have never sponsored or preached any action against the Nigerian state. Those initiating these actions have increasingly used their official positions and agents to make false allegations against me. I am on record, as always, advocating for peace and issue-based campaigns and never campaigned based on ethnicity or religion. I am committed to due process and presently seeking redress in court. I urge those engaged in this demarketing process to stop presenting Nigeria in such a bad light. Our future generation deserve a new Nigeria where they can live a secure and decent life like their counterparts in other climes. It is possible. Well, these were the tweets from the Labour Party presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, yesterday, which, as I said, has gone viral and was a direct response to comments made by Mr. Lai Mohammed, the Minister of Information and Culture. Well, the minister, of course, was interacting, as I said, with the international media organization and think tanks on the just concluded polls yesterday. And it's also said that the running mate of Mr. Peter Obi at this election, Mr. Dati Baba Ahmed, have been inviting insurrection since they lost the February 25 presidential polls. Well, he said Obi and his vice, Dati, cannot be threatening Nigerians. That is, if President-elect Bola Tinubu of the APC gets sworn in on May 29, that it will be the end of democracy in Nigeria. According to Lai Mohammed, this is treason and you cannot be inviting insurrection. And that is what they are doing. And it's also said Peter Obi's statement is that of a desperate person and is not a Democrat as it claims to be. So the face-off now between the government and Mr. Peter Obi is somewhat expected in some quarters. Because looking at the timeline of the electioneering period, especially the aftermath of the concluded presidential polls, one of the first things Mr. Peter Obi did was to address a world press conference where he not only said he would be seeking redress in courts to reclaim a mandate he believes was stolen from him under his grasp at the polls, he also urged his supporters not to take to the streets to protest, and has said everything should be done as peacefully as possible. And it also informs the choice of words used in his response yesterday to Lai Mohammed via those tweets, where he insisted that he has never campaigned on ethnicity, neither has he campaigned on religious grounds. Well, some would say maybe there's a default with that line of thought, considering the leaked conversation, the alleged conversation in the leaked audio. There was a purported conversation between Mr. Peter Obi himself and the founder of the Living Faith Church Worldwide, Bishop David Oyedepo, where he not only canvassed for votes and supports from Christians in Kwara State or the Southwest State, he also described the elections as a religious war. And of course, we know there were deepening divisions within the ranks of even the Labour Party following the leaking of, or the leakage rather, of that audio, because you had some persons within the Labour Party say that was unbecoming of Peter Obi, considering the range of support he has enjoyed over the course of this electioneering period, because a lot of persons saw him as one not made to, engage in use of negative rhetorics or remarks or throwing tantrums at political opponents and shades, as was the tradition with some other parties in the lead up to this polls. Well, the fact that this had emerged right after the polls itself brings about a lot of questioning. But there's also been some level of admittance, even among some spokespersons of the Labour Party and the Obi Dati Presidential Campaign Council, including that of Nollywood actor Kenneth Okonkwo, who said, yes, the content of the said leaked conversation were actually true, meaning Mr. Peter Obi did meet with Bishop David Oyedepo, and the words he was alleged to have made or used were actually right. But it's also said that's just one part of the entire conversation, and it looks like those behind the leakage of the audio specifically doctored what area they wanted the public to hear. Because according to him, the conversation stemmed from the initial talk about the APC's insistence on a Muslim ticket of Bola Tinubu, President-elect, as well as Kashim Shettima, Vice President-elect today, who is, of course, a former governor of Borno State. And political onlookers, neutrals, would also, lay claims to the fact that there was perhaps nothing totally condemnable with the choice of words Mr. Peter Obi made when he said it was a religious war, because Kashim Shettima, the Vice President-elect, has also been fingered for also making inciting comments and remarks. At one point, he was alleged to have described Christians as infidels. So why hasn't his statements been blown out of proportion? Why haven't calls been made for Mr. Kashima to be invited by the DSS for questioning a possible arrest, knowing that comments like that could clearly invite insurrection, as is the charges being put through to Mr. Peter Obi by Lai Mohammed? Well, we understand a sister station across the country, Channels Television precisely, was slammed a huge fine for bickering on the comments made by the likes of Dati Baba Ahmed, the vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party. And it's also received a widespread condemnation, referring to the slamming of the charges on the sister station there over the comments they made or handled the said interview with Dati Baba Ahmed. So, Nigeria, everyone agrees, stoking up the tension right now is not the best way to go, but it's the APC using a so-called federal might to mitigate its way through, factors that have emerged from pre- and post-election concerns and incidences to perhaps silence opposition in the country. Does this appear to be the case? Again, looking at the timeline of the trend of events from the elections up until now, where the federal government and then the APC later said those who had issues with the outcome of these elections can simply head to court. And from the word go, starting with the World Press Conference he actually had, Mr. Peter Obi did clearly say he would be heading to court. The man who finished second in the race, Mr. Atiku Abubakar of the PDP, is also in court seeking redress to also reclaim a mandate he believes he lost at the polls. But some would find it equally funny that the APC, who already posited that they would be waiting for aggrieved losers of the elections in court, have had a turnaround to now criticize those who have decided to go to court. So is it in the position of the APC to, talk down on people who have decided to, go ahead with constitutional provisions by seeking redress in court on a matter they feel they were largely shortchanged? And that was the outcome of the just concluded elections. Well, opinion clearly divided on this issue, as I said, especially with the position of Mr. Peter Obi right now. There are some of his supporters who have also expressed disappointment with his choice of words, especially from that leaked conversation with Bishop David Oyedepo. The cleric himself responded and said it wasn't out of place for him to host any political party or a candidate because virtually all of them have come to him for prayers, counseling, and advice before the elections. But while he has owned up to his own comments, it's clearly left for Mr. Peter Obi to own up to his as well. Did he cross the line when he described the election as a religious war? Well, some would say yes. And would you say it incited violence or in somewhat inviting an insurrection, a possible rebellion or a chaos by way of a protest across the country? Some would also say to an extent, but we haven't really seen that happening just yet. While there have been mild protests across the country in the aftermath of the polls, some of them, by the way, not organized, or to the best of our knowledge, none has been called by the Labour Party just yet. If for anything, we've only had the People's Democratic Party stage a one-day protest, all dressed in black, at the national headquarters of INEC in Abuja just a few days after the election. So, from the look of things, the Labour Party is quite clear in its position that it is not in any way inviting any form of violence across the country. And that's why Mr. Peter Obi has directly hit out at Lai Mohammed over the comments he made yesterday. So where are we heading to with all of this? And perhaps the most interesting factor to the face-off between the duo is that Mr. Lai Mohammed's comments came in the front of the international press. He was addressing the international media yesterday on the outcome of the just concluded polls, perhaps a necessitated move in the face of the damning remarks by some of the international observers who monitored the election, who claimed that while it was peaceful, or quite peaceful at large, there were pockets of incidents that marred, the state of the elections that should have been enough for INEC to go back to the drawing board and, address the impasse occasioned by those incidents. So Nigerians could know that, yes, we have an electoral system that works and is ready to correct the ills of years past by addressing those concerns. INEC seemingly swept those issues under the carpet and said aggrieved parties should head to court. So the submission from those who have been at the helm, INEC, the government, the ruling party, has always been go to court. So why do they feel threatened that the opposition has actually headed to court? So in the views of some, it looks like this are just staged incidences by the government to perhaps ward off the attention that the post-election litigations from opposition parties and the momentum it is having is likely gaining across the country and the rest of the world, because whether we like it or not, the international community is clearly fixated on events happening in Nigeria and could explain why the APC themselves are still feeling miffed about the fact that the US President Joe Biden is yet to call and congratulate Bola Tinubu on his election victory, according to results announced by INEC. So much so that the likes of Femi Fani-Kayode had also sent a message out that the US President should call Bola Tinubu and congratulate him. But as far as negative rhetoric goes, some would say the APC have equally been culpable and guilty in this regard. Festus Keyamo and Femi Fani-Kayode are two chief spokespersons of the APC throughout these elections. They've been accused of making inciting comments or remarks. Even before the elections, Mr. Kayode reportedly said that the army was colluding with the PDP to truncate the democratic process by, instigating a coup. Well, he did not have evidence to any of those comments. And aside being invited and grilled for a few hours by the DSS, after which it was let to go free, we haven't heard anything of that matter anymore. So, where did Mr. Fani-Kayode get his claims or, substantive remarks or claims that, yes, the PDP were working in connivance with the Nigerian army to instigate a coup? Now, that was a very damning remark to make, but apparently Mr. Fani-Kayode is walking the streets of the country free, even when the UK, through the Deputy High Commissioner to Nigeria, said Mr. Fani-Kayode is just one of 10 persons that they are monitoring in terms of those who have made inciting comments during the election. We haven't seen Mr. Kayode invited again for questioning. If for anything, he came out with his own response and asked the Deputy High Commissioner to shut his mouth and stop involving himself with Nigeria's political business. So, you have the UK government, pinpointing a spokesperson of the ruling party and saying he made inciting remarks in the lead up to the election. You had the Nigerian army issue a statement right after the presidential election claiming that the Rivers State Governor, Nyesom Wike, was culpable for mobilizing thugs to truncate the just concluded election. No one has made a claim or comment about Governor Wike's position at that post. So why is much of the attention fixated on Mr. Peter Obi and his running mate Dati Baba Ahmed? Are there more to this that meets the eye that perhaps the federal government should let us know? These are interesting times indeed for Nigerians to look out for. And this will be interwoven, referring to this line of conversation, with a second story we'll be looking at going forward. And that's the concerns raised by Nigerians that the Nigerian Communications Commission, MCC, is allegedly tapping the phone lines of Nigerians. All of these revelations coming in the wake of the leaked audio conversation between Mr. Peter Obi and Bishop David Oyedepo. The NCC has denied the claims, but how true are they? We'll find out more when we come back. Just stay with us, Political Spectrum. We'll return.
Every day, we bring you up-to-date information on topical issues affecting the common Nigeria.
From issues on politics,
Hello, Nigeria. I remain committed.
security,
education, health,
lifestyle, and so much more. Join Janice Kobum and Uyai Anyeken
every weekday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Rise and Shine Daily, exclusive on Spectrum Television.
Not often told, is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Welcome back and many thanks for staying on. You're watching Political Spectrum live on Spectrum Television. And just a quick reminder of the major focus of our discussion this morning, the lingering face-off between the federal government and the candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, over claims that he has been inviting insurrection across the country over making inciting comments as post-election reactions continue to dominate the political space in the country. Mr. Peter Obi did respond likewise by criticizing Mr. Lai Mohammed's comments and said he has never instigated or campaigned on religious or ethnic basis throughout the course of the campaign. And if for anything, he has said he will continue seeking redress as he has done to reclaim his mandate in court. Well, the other matter up for discussion is also on the NCC allegedly tapping into phone lines of Nigerians. All of this coming in the wake of the purported leaked conversation between Peter Obi and David Oyedepo. While some Nigerians have criticized him for his choice of words, it has also, awoken the consciousness of Nigerians who have said perhaps all this while the NCC has been involved in nefarious activities by breaching the privacy of Nigerians by allegedly tapping into their phone lines, claims that they have always denied. Plus, President Buhari's so-called legacy and whether it has been left in the mud in the face of what the just concluded elections means for Nigerians and the rest of the watching world. Well, let's go to Benue State and the state capital, Makurdi. Gordon Odobot, political and tech analyst, joins us live on Political Spectrum. Good morning to you, Godwin, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Raymond.
It's good to have you join us. Let's get straight to it, shall we? We'll come to talk about the NCC in a short while and the alleged phone tapping of Nigerians, because I know that's your area of interest. But let's wind up first off by talking about the just concluded elections, which has led to so much chaos across the country. It looks like post-election concerns are just as hefty as pre or, during the elections, the concerns that were raised as well. We've talked about INEC before, whom you have closely monitored throughout the electioneering period. Top of the agenda post-election is that they requested for around 3 billion naira, to facilitate its defense of this election. Elections that the opposition have described as marred with irregularities, not in conformity to the Electoral Act or the Constitution of the country. And it seems like anyone who says anything about how the elections went is now being accused of making inciting comments, including we, journalists. So, Gordon, I'll start by asking, you followed INEC all through this election. You're well aware of how much they spent, the trainings they underwent for themselves and their staff, and the aftermath of the elections themselves. President Buhari has insisted that this is one of the best elections INEC has ever conducted. I'm not going to ask you, since you're not a staff of INEC, whether you agree with that position or not, but what is your summary take on INEC's overall performance from the last two elections we witnessed this year?
Okay, let me first of all say that most time, I don't know. In Nigeria, it seems that when you want to talk, the government will say, don't talk. You remember one statement that Senator Dio Malay said some time ago. He said, in Nigeria, if you talk, you die. You don't talk, you still die. So what do? We talk and die. So in Nigeria, it's like that. Currently, election has come and gone. Now, if you talk, people will say you talk, and if you don't talk, people will say you don't talk. If INEC have done the right thing, I am not sure that we will have issues. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Godwin. Can you hear loud and clear?
Okay. If INEC have done the right thing to commensurate the amount of money that was spent on all the beavers, training and all that, I'm not sure that we'll be having issues today. But to me, I want to say that in the conduct of the election in general, I know some people will be happy because they come out top. So some people will also be aggrieved because they didn't make it. But I want to say, in general, to me, the election was not properly conducted as regards to the amount of money that was spent on the election, in preparing for the election. So it is rather unfortunate that we are in a country at this moment, this situation that we are facing now, that an independent body cannot conduct election, that people will come out and say, okay, this is the base. So I am not going to refute President Muhammad Buhari for saying that the conduct of the election is the base. He is the base to his own knowledge. I am not an INEC staff. He is not an INEC staff. He's just the president. So it's the report they gave to him. That is what he believes.
Well, if this is the case, as you have said, one of the trending issues across the country today is the federal government slamming Mr. Peter Obi and Dati Ahmed, the presidential candidates and vice presidential candidates of the Labour Party, for saying that going ahead to swear in Bola Tinubu come May 29 would be an unconstitutional move because, in their views, INEC should not have gone ahead to declare them president-elects or president and vice president-elect respectively, referring to Bola Tinubu and Kashim Shettima of the APC, because they did not meet the constitutional requirement to be declared president-elect. Well, the role of INEC in all of this is very critical because some of the issues that the Labour Party has raised here, first off, is that the APC did not win across the 25 states of the Federation and the FCT. It's a contentious issue that was put before INEC during the collation process of this election. Wasn't it a worry to you that INEC decided to sweep this matter under the carpet when it should have addressed them even before making the formal announcement of who should be president-elect? There's no law that says if the election finishes today, we must have a winner announced the next day. That's why it's called a collation, and collation takes time. And if there were issues observed during the collation, everyone would expect that INEC will have dealt with those issues immediately before going ahead to announce who the winner of the polls were. So would you say INEC erred severely by going ahead to announce a president-elect in the wee hours of the 1st of March when most Nigerians were just waking up from sleep and deciding to ignore the real-time issues that were raised by the Labour Party candidates?
Okay, I want to say the real-time issues that was raised by the Labour Party candidate, announcing Bola Tinubu as the president-elect in the just concluded election. What does the electoral law says about winning FCT and 25 states of the federation? Now, if the candidate of the APC
25% of votes across the states.
Okay. Now, if Bola Tinubu or the APC did not meet this electoral law requirement, why did they announce the result, or why did they go ahead to pronounce Mr. Bola Tinubu as the president-elect for Nigeria? Because the electoral law is there. It is there to guide INEC and the people. It is there to guide INEC on the conduct of the election. It is also there to guide the candidate also. As the election is being collected, you now begin to check, okay, did I meet the electoral law? Did I meet the requirement of the law to be announced the winner of the election? If it is a simple thing, but you know, in Nigeria is that, or in our country today, everything they say that whether you do it, if it is wrong or right, they just go ahead and do it the way they want and ask you. Because during the poll, during the collation of the result, I was hearing when they say go to court, go to court. So even if we announce the election result, if it is not the right thing, go to court. Because a lot of us believes that when you get to the court, most often time, you will not have justice. You will not get justice. So they keep saying go to court, because if they have said that go to court, if they said go to court during the collation of the result, it means that something was wrong and they didn't want to correct it. And you're putting Nigeria, the whole country, at a standstill, and you're putting Nigerians as on a suspense by going ahead to announce election result that did not meet the requirement of the electoral law. So in this case, most time you see people doing things outrightly that seems that they are above the law, which is wrong. So why do we have the electoral law in the first place if we're not going to obey it? If INEC is not going to obey the electoral law, why did we have it?
Well, interestingly, the BVAS were a critical part of the just concluded elections, and better than anyone, as a tech savvy person, you understand the workings of technology such as that. It's equally going to play a critical role in most of the post-election litigations that we will see in court, especially issues around the deployment of the BVAS, areas where they allegedly malfunctioned, and the refusal of INEC in some cases to transmit the result electronically, as was provided, by the Electoral Act, something they denied themselves when they claimed INEC still had the wherewithal to decide whether or not they would transmit results manually or electronically. With all of this put together, and from what we have said so far, would you say for someone coming out to insist that the right thing needs to be done, does it amount to making inciting comments? I mean, if you say that you're going to transmit results electronically, and I didn't see real-time evidence of that happening, and then I come out to make a bold statement that you erred against the rules of the book. Would you say that that amounts to, inviting insurrection? Because that seems to be the position of the government here. They just feel whatever INEC has done or has, told us, we should take it hook, line, and sinker. So if we say anything contrary to INEC's position, as far as the last elections were concerned, then that is inciting people to violence, chaos, or rebellion, as Mr. Lai Mohammed alleged yesterday.
Okay, like even INEC told before the governorship election, INEC came up to say that they understand that there were issues arising from malfunctioning of beavers, meaning they knew that the beavers, when some of the collation center or some of the polling units, the beavers were not functioning as it's supposed to be. Now, for someone to come out and say INEC have bypassed the electoral law to do something that was not in the law, tagging to be an incisive statement. I feel like the statement I made before I begin, that says that if you talk and die, you don't talk and die. So I feel the Nigerian government or our government is just believing that whatever INEC does is right. INEC cannot have it 100%. Mark my word. INEC cannot have it 100%. Because these beavers are electronics and it's going to be managed by human beings. And these human beings were not trained. You took 3 days to train people to handle beavers that is going to conduct a very sensitive election. And these people that were trained, most of them were not carefully selected. You open it up. Some people that could not even, they don't even know how to handle these beavers were deployed to the field to operate these beavers, and you expect 100% result. I still believe it is not correct. So for blaming or for trying to attack Mr. Peter Obi and Senator Ahmed Gatti for an incisive statement, it is telling the people that the electoral law that was put in place was also wrong. Because you cannot bypass the electoral law and do something else and expect the people to be quiet. Unless they don't know the law. Like some of the people who are clapping their hands, who are jumping around, are people who don't even know the electoral law, who have not seen it, who have not gone through it. So they just believe that whatever is coming up, oh, it's INEC, well, it's our party, we win it. But critically, it's not true. It's not correct.
Let's wrap up that particular line of conversation now, because as it is, everyone is saying we're heading to court. INEC has said if you agree for the outcome of the polls, go to court. The federal government is saying go to court. The losing candidates at the polls have said they will all go to court. So here's the million-dollar question now. Should we head to court as is the process ongoing? Do you believe that INEC will likely rescue itself from the damning allegations of not conducting these elections to the satisfactory taste that most Nigerians had expected? They recently asked for 3 billion naira to defend electoral cases that are likely to come up, and so far we're told more than 100 petitions have come in against INEC following the conduct of that election. So with all of the issues that we have looked at, do you think it's very likely that INEC will get a clean sweep at the court processes, or the many problems of Mahmoud Yakubu is likely to just begin?
If we have a credible court judgment where there is not going to be biased judgment, where there is not going to be the judiciary induced by all amount of pressure and all that, I believe that the court will come out with a good evidence and judgment that the election was marred by irregularities and all that. So I am not seeing if the court will give the Nigerian people the judgment that they deserve. I am not going to see, we may not see INEC coming out clean in these court issues that they are all telling the candidates of various parties who lose the election to go to court. Unless otherwise, they are going to prove to Nigerians that what they did in the election was correct. And that can only happen when the court says what INEC did was correct with good and substantial evidence.
Okay, Godwin, let's go quickly to another very pressing matter. And I'd like you to bring your tech expertise into this. The Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, has denied that it is tapping into the phone lines of Nigerians. The claims, of course, have come on the back of the released leaked audio conversation between Mr. Peter Obi and Bishop David Oyedepo, which I'm sure you're well aware of. A lot of persons have criticized Mr. Peter Obi for his comments in the purported conversation when he said the elections were a religious war. But that's just one matter. The second matter to it here is that the consciousness of most Nigerians seems to have awoken to the realization that, look, we're not even safe and we don't even have our privacy because someone somewhere is perhaps tapping into our conversations, breaching our privacies and the very depth, you know, of our social lives by eavesdropping into our conversations. While, of course, we would say in some cases it's not out of place for the government through its secret policies like the DSS, the SSS, or even using the NCC to monitor the activities of persons that may likely constitute a threat to the nation or national security. Don't you find it funny that the NCC is perhaps breaching into people's privacies by tapping in on their phone lines? They have denied these claims, but how else would the conversation between Mr. Peter Obi and Bishop David Oyedepo, which was a phone conversation, how did it get leaked into the public space if the NCC had not breached certain rules?
To me, I feel it is not going to be possible, or it is not possible that communication could be leaked without the NCC and the network providing companies. So for NCC to say, to come out and refute the claim that they are not in connection with it. So who did it? How did they tap into the conversation? Whether it was a negative conversation, it was a positive conversation, that is not even the case. So it means you could be staying in your house and be talking and somebody is tapping, because I know the way I understand communication, telecommunication, is that once you place a call, the call went to the base station. That is, the base station is the subscribing company that owns the SIM card that is in your phone. The calls get to them, and the call, after getting to them, they now transmit this call to whoever you are, you were placing the call to talk to. So there is a process that phone calls go through. So for a person or a private phone call to be leaked means there are compromise in different quarters, either from the network providing company, or it is from the NCC, or they are secret people who are monitoring people's conversation, and they are tapping it and sending it to where they want to send it to. And this alone cannot happen when there is no permission by bodies that are controlling, or that is controlling communication in the entire system.
Godwin, this is just akin to, you know, the claims from certain quarters that even the beavers that were deployed during the elections, you know, were, you know, prone to being hacked or tampered with. We've seen several persons, including the former INEC chairman, Professor Atairu Jega, warn Nigerians that, look, do not rely 100% on the beavers. It can be manipulated or tampered with by a third party. Even though INEC under Mahmoud Yakubu told us they were 3 steps ahead of anyone attempting to hack into its backend server or the beavers itself. Same could be applicable to the NCC, yeah. I mean, is there a chance that maybe a third party could have access to, you know, codes that could likely infringe on people's privacy in terms of tapping into conversations without permission of the interested parties? And in that note, you could say maybe the NCC is actually innocent here of the allegations leveled against them.
Yeah, NCC could be innocent against the allegation leveled against them, because I know that in if entirely all over the world, there are people known as hackers. They go about manipulating, trying to get access to different secret sites to gather information and all that. And these hackers are not just working on their own. There are people who finance them. Okay, if I want to say, oh sorry, if NCC are saying that they are not in connection to that, so it means that even their website, even their site is not secure, because we will see different kind of people manipulating or trying to go to the web, to their site, tracking information without their consent. So it means NCC have to go back and build their firewalls very well. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Godwin.
Okay, so it means that NCC does not, the website or their site does not have a strong firewall. Let me tell you, I am a tech expert, and I want to tell you categorically that in Nigeria, there are some certain sites that do not have, we don't have a strong firewalls when it comes to cyber security. That is why you see a lot of, every time people break into different sites in Nigeria, breaking down the site, doing all that thing. Because we have failed to train our tech guys, we have failed to adapt to what is obtainable in other parts of the world. Like, for instance, you can't tell me that an hacker can hack into American website and take information without the American knowing about it, because they are very good in tech. So we should do this kind of a thing. We should embrace this kind of technology in Nigeria and build our tech, our cyber security very strong. In Nigeria, I don't think we have a strong cyber security, because if we have a strong cyber security, we will not have phone call leaked. We will not have the former INEC chairman, Mr. Dr. Professor Tahiru Jaga, coming on to tell us that the beavers could be tampered with, when INEC told us that the beavers could not be tampered with. So it means our firewalls are not strong, and this is a challenge to us. It's a challenge to our tech industry.
Well, Godwin, what does this say? What does this now say of the NCC? Because on one hand, they are insistent that they cannot be breached. Their own servers cannot be breached. You just mentioned the important talk about having secured firewalls to protect our cyberspace. And you have the NCC saying we are impregnable. But how can you be impregnable and at the same time not have win or a full grasp of how phone conversations into telephone lines belonging to citizens that you were monitoring were tapped without your knowledge? And on one hand, they're saying, look, we cannot be impregnated. Our servers cannot be impregnated by external forces.
So if their services, or if their service cannot be impregnated by internal forces, how did the phone call leak? Was it that, sorry, Dr. Oyedepo recorded the call and sent to anybody, or Mr. Peter Obi recorded the call and sent to anybody? No. If it was like that, it would be that maybe you are placing a phone call, I am recording the call, immediately I finish, I send it to, this is our conversation, this is what Mr. A or Mr. B is saying to me during our phone conversation. But if it is not through that process, it means that the calls, that the NCC might not know that somebody is tapping on their information, is tapping on the phone calls of Nigerians. Might not necessarily be Nigerians. It might not just be issues relating to politics and Nigerians alone. It could be that everything about communication in Nigeria is not secure if issues like this arise. So NCC must go back and reinforce their side. If they say their side is strong, let them make it more stronger, because you cannot say your side is strong and someone's phone call was leaked, a private phone call was leaked out, and you say your side is strong, or it cannot be tampered with the third party. I don't know, but I am not sure that can happen when their side was properly enhanced, that things like this cannot happen. There are so many Nigerians who are very smart, and you don't know maybe what some of these people can do. They can go as extra miles of bringing people from experts from all around the world to be breaking into this our NCC side without them knowing it. There could be that there are things like this happening. So the phone call was not leaked by spirits, was not leaked by ghosts. So it was leaked by experts who have gone through. So it is someone who leaked the phone call that even transmit the phone call to every Nigerians to hear. So they should tell us how the phone call, the first people that play out this phone call should tell us how they get it.
Interesting fact indeed. Just before I let you go, quick one on this. The entire political space has seen a beehive of activities since after the elections, and everyone is somewhat prepping up for a handover of power between President Buhari and President-elect Bola Tinubu come May 29, in the face of alleged plots to instigate or foist an interim government on the country. Nigerians seem to be pretty tensed about all of these stories and developments. What are your expectations going forward? Do you think perhaps that the DSS have been, within their rights to inform Nigerians that we have this threat in place? We will do our best to annihilate them. In fact, they've told us that they've identified where these threats are coming from, except that they did not give us names. And so far, we haven't heard of anyone being arrested yet, of the persons they claim they have identified. Even with the court cases taking place side by side with the post-election litigations and all of that, are you expecting, as is the expectations of most Nigerians, that we would have a seamless transfer of power from President Buhari to President-elect Bola Tinubu?
I personally, as a Nigerian, I am a person full of peace, full of togetherness, who don't like problems, who don't like issues. When it comes to the togetherness of Nigeria, the oneness of Nigeria, I want Nigeria to be at peace. That is why I am not among those people saying there's going to be interim government, there's going to be issues, because I am praying for the unity of Nigeria every day. So I am not in support of any interim government or breakdown of law and order as regards to the forthcoming swearing in of the president-elect. So like I said originally from the beginning, that if the courts will come and say Bola Tinubu wins the election with substantial evidence, so what is stopping the swearing in? What is stopping it? Nothing should stop it. Nobody should incite or should begin to incite violence in Nigeria, should begin to promote violence in Nigeria. It is very wrong. At this point in time, we should be talking about how to unite Nigeria and make the country a better place, so that people will not be running away from the country and be going to the best brain in Nigeria will not be running out of this country to another place to build a country for other people and leave our country deserted. So we should not be clamoring for interim government. Rather, we should be clamoring for a better government. We should be clamoring for the judiciary to come out with perfect judgment, with judgment that will soften the heart of Nigeria, that will bring unity to Nigeria. That is all what I pray for every day. Not interim government, not violence, not fight, not war.
Well, just as we pray, you would oblige us another time on the show when next we become. Thank you very much, Godwin, for joining us on Political Spectrum today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much as well. Political and tech analyst Godwin Adobots joining us from Makurdi, the Benue State capital. We've talked extensively about denial of claims that the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, has been wiring or tapping into phone conversations of Nigerians in the wake of the leaked audio, which was a purported conversation between the Labour Party presidential candidate, Peter Obi, as well as the founder of the Living Faith Church Worldwide, Bishop David Oyedepo, over the former's appeal for the later to canvass support from Kwara State and the Southwest going into the elections, which he described before the polls as a religious war. We did say opinion is largely divided on this, even within the rank and file of the Labour Party, some of whom have criticized Mr. Obi for making such a remark. It's perhaps why the federal government has jumped on this through the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, who was addressing the international media yesterday on the state of things with the just concluded elections. One of the things he talked about was a direct warning to Mr. Peter Obi not to make inciting comments or, as he put it, invite insurrection over the just concluded polls, and has insisted any grievances should be channeled to court. A position Mr. Peter Obi has upheld in a series of tweets he released yesterday. We'll just put that up on the screen for you again. And part of it said, in the past few days, I have observed various campaigns of calumny directed at my person, with the latest being allegations attributed to the Information Minister Lai Mohammed from Washington, D.C. It is most unfortunate that these consistent efforts to portray me quite contrary to what I am and my core values are coming from such high quarters. Minister Lai accusing me of stoking insurrection is totally malicious and fictitious. I have never discussed or encouraged anyone to undermine the Nigerian state. I have never sponsored or preached any action against the Nigerian state. Those initiating these actions have increasingly used their official positions and agents to make false allegations against me. I am on record, as always, advocating for peace and issue-based campaign, and never campaigned on ethnicity or religion. I am committed to due process and presently seeking redress in the court. I urge those engaged in this demarketing process to stop presenting Nigeria in such a bad light. Our future generations deserve a new Nigeria where they can live a secure and decent life like their counterparts in other climes. It is possible. Mr. Peter Obi, presidential candidate of the Labour Party, in a series of tweets yesterday which have gone viral, and most Nigerians have, of course, reacted to this as well. Underneath the tweet, as we said, opinion clearly divided on these issues, while some have berated him for his choice of words during the purported conversation with Bishop Oyedepo. Others have alluded to the fact that there are members of the APC who have equally made inciting comments or remarks. We already gave you a background on that, and some names to go with. Femi Fani-Kayode, chief amongst them, who recently, before the elections, claimed there was a plan to stage a coup by the PDP and some contents within the Nigerian army to remove President Buhari from office. He's still walking free today. Why that it has not translated to be inciting comments is something that is surprising to most Nigerians. But maybe the international community is not taking that with a pinch of salt. And that's why the UK Deputy High Commissioner to Nigeria also said Mr. Fani-Kayode is one amongst 10 persons that they have pinned down to have made inciting comments during the elections. Or whether the UK and the rest of the international community would make good on their promise to deny visas to persons who have been, fingered to have taken part in these activities is left to be seen. But back home, all of these issues will likely linger on for some time, even until after President Buhari likely quits office. And we'll do our best to keep up with all of this development and bring you up to speed with them as well. But that's the size of the show for today. Many thanks indeed for joining us, and thanks to Godwin, who of course came through from Benue State a short while ago. Political Spectrum, we'll be back again tomorrow. Keep a date with us if you can. But from me, Raymond Ita, and the rest of the crew, thanks for watching. Bye for now.